So this is a 2019 Infiniti QX60. Unfortunately, they don't come standard with Android Auto or CarPlay. So we picked up a UNAVI Carplay module and we're going to install that today. The first thing we're going to do is start the car, put it into neutral, and put the emergency brake on. And then we'll shut the car off. Next I just pop the hood and then I'm going to open it up. This little yellow latch here. We'll just disconnect the battery as the car will continue beeping while the car is in neutral. So we just disconnected the connection from the negative post of the battery. Next we need to remove the shifter, so we're just going to pop this piece down here. We're just going to use a flat edge screwdriver to pop out this metal clip here. And then we should be able to pull the shifter right out. I'm just going to put the clip back in so that we don't lose it. Next is probably the trickiest part of this whole install. We need to remove this rubber tray. So I'm going to begin by just using a pry tool to lift this corner up here, and we'll pull it up all along the edge here. It's clipped in three ways, but there's also 3 clips where it's actually clipped into the back here, so we need to kind of lift it up and push it in so that we can actually unseat it. So I'm going to give that a shot now. So I'm not able to get the rubber tray out, so I'm going to take a different approach and remove these side panels here first. So basically these are just going to pop off along the edge here. I'm just going to use a little pry bar and pop out the clips on both sides, and we'll do the same on the other side. So you won't be able to pop these side panels off completely because they're screwed in underneath this USB tray. So next I'm going to try to unclip this USB tray. I'm just going to pop it up here in these ends here and see if I can remove the USB tray that way so we can get that plastic rubber tray out as well. Okay, so we have the USB tray unclipped here. Let's lift it a little bit. As you can see, there are 2 screws in there, one on that side and one on this side. And I'm just going to loosen those because I don't want to take them out completely, otherwise they'll be pretty hard to get back in. But if I loosen those, I should be able to take these 2 side panels off. Now with those 2 side panels off, I'm hoping that this USB tray will come out a little easier. There we go. So I was able to get it out with the rubber tray. Alright, so I'm just going to drop this USB tray over to the side here, let it hang. And this is the rubber tray that I was trying to get out. As you can see, there's 3 notches there. I was trying to push this back and out, but I wasn't able to do that. So this way will work as well, it looks like. Now I'm going to remove this tray below the CD panel here. I'm just going to pop it out. There's 4 clips in there. I should be able to just pull it straight back out. Once the tray is popped out, there's a little clip here. I'm just going to push this tab down and pull it straight out. We'll put that off to the side. Now we can remove the next panel, and that should be able to do the same thing just by pulling it straight back. Now we can remove these 2 Phillips screws, one on this side, one on this side, and then we can remove the DVD player. Alright, once the 2 screws have been removed, we should be able to remove the DVD player. It should pop out the same way. Pull straight back out, both sides, and then we'll remove the clip on this side here. So that's the power connection that I have to disconnect next. And actually, before I go any further, I'm just going to add a little towel here so I don't scratch up any of the interior while I remove these pieces. So to disconnect this clip, I just had to use a screwdriver and push in on this tab here while pulling out. Alright, so underneath the control panel, there's 2 more screws we're going to remove. One on this side, right there, and one on this side, right there. So we'll remove those 2 screws next. Once those two screws have been removed, you should be able to pop out the control panel. And then we will disconnect this cable here. Next we need to remove this vent cover here. To do that, there's one screw right in the middle here, Phillips screw, so we'll remove that first. Once that screw has been removed, we're going to pop off the vent panel. We're going to start on the right side, and then move to the left. When I removed the vent cover, this one didn't come out, it just popped off, but it just snaps back into place pretty easily. So now we need to remove the OEM monitor, so we're going to remove these two Phillips screws here next. Once the two screws have been removed, we should be able to pop the monitor out. And then we can disconnect the cables at the back here. I started by removing the top two, and now we can remove the last 5 here. Okay, once the display is out, I'm just going to add a screen protector that was provided. Once the screen protector has been added, I'm just going to remove the 4 mounting bracket screws so that we can remove the mounting bracket off the display. Once the 4 screws have been removed, we should be able to pop the mounting bracket off. Now I'm going to remove this side bracket, so I'm going to remove these 3 screws on this side and these 3 on this side, and remove these 2 side brackets. Once the screw is removed, these should just pop straight out. Now we can remove the remaining 8 screws. So there's 1, 2 on this side, 3, 4 on this side, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Once the screws have been removed, we want to remove this back panel here. There's a fan on the right side. So what we want to do is pull it from this side, up and over, and then we can disconnect the fan here. Alright, now we need to disconnect these 3 ribbon cables. The first one, we're just going to pull this tab up here, and then pull the ribbon cable straight out. For the next one, we're just going to pull this white piece up here, and once it's unlocked, we can pull the ribbon cable out. And then the last one, I'm just going to flip that up and then pull this ribbon cable straight back. Now I'm going to remove this screw in the center. And then we can pop the board straight back, up and over, like this. Next, we're ready to get the CarPlay subboard ready. So I lifted this black piece up here, and we're going to install the ribbon cable, the blue side facing up. Just going to slide that in. And snap that back into place. Now we're ready to put the black insert in place first. So we're just going to slide it under this ribbon cable, get it in place. Now we can put our subboard in place, and we will connect this ribbon cable first, this orange one here. So what we're going to do is make sure that this guy is pulled out all the way and slide that guy in. And this orange ribbon cable is secure in place. I'm just going to pop down this white clip. Next, we need to slide the orange cable in underneath here. So I just lifted this piece here, and we're going to slide this orange cable underneath. get it all lined up, and then pinch this black piece down. After we clip this ribbon cable in, we just want to make sure there's a nice straight line all the way along the edge, so it's all the way in. And now we're going to use the 3 plastic rivets that were provided to secure the board in place. Now we can install the last ribbon cable. So we're just to make sure that the blue side is up, push it all the way in as far as it can go, and then we'll snap that piece into place. Alright, so now we're going to put our OEM board back into place. So our Bluetooth antenna came loose, so we're just going to reconnect that. Then we can replace the screw for the main board. Now we need to reconnect our 3 ribbon cables. So we're going to start with this one. I'm just going to slide it in, make sure this black piece is up, slide it in and pinch down. Pull this white piece back out. And then we'll slide this one in. I'm just going to bend it just a little bit, make it easier to get in place. Last but not least, the one on the side. Alright, so now I'm going to route these 2 cables right to the side here. And this cable I just bent a little bit. We're just going to move it in. So this back one here, I'm just going to bend it so that it routes right through there. And these 2 will right through there. And now we're ready to replace the back plate. So first I'll connect the fan. And we can slide this back into place gently. As we slide it back into place, we just want to make sure that these cables aren't getting pinched. So we're just going to make sure that they're clear all the way. And then we can slide this back in place till the holes line up on this side and on this side. Just want to make sure that these wires are moving freely so that they're not crimped. And they seem pretty good. Now I'm going to replace the 4 screws in the back first. Now we're ready to replace the side panel, so I'm just going to bend these 2 wires over and this one underneath, and I'm just going to snug it up and we'll screw that in. Not too tight, but just enough so that the wires aren't crimped. Once that side panel is in, we can replace the rest of the screws. Finally, we're going to replace the mounting bracket and screw that back into place. And now we're done with the display. Now we need to remove the radio, so what we're going to do is remove these 2 screws here and these 2 underneath, 1 and 2. Now we can pull the radio unit forward. It's just up there. We'll just rest it on the dash here. Alright, so now we're going to route the DCU main cable. So what we want to do is come from underneath here, and we're going to pull it through at the top, just from underneath, like that. Pull both of these through. Alright, next we're going to take the DCU main cable that we just pulled through here, and we're going to connect that to the display cable that was previously plugged into the display. And once that's secured, we're going to put some foam tape around it, just so that we prevent any cross signal interference on the connection. Now we'll connect the mic cable to the other display port connection. Make sure it snaps into place. Once again, we're going to apply foam tape on the connector. Then we can route this little cable here back underneath the other cables and fish it through the bottom here. This key connector isn't actually required for this car, so I'm just going to fold it up here and then just tape it up to this wire right here. Alright, now we're ready to put the display back into place. So the first thing we're going to do though is take the cables that were connected to the display here, and we're going to route those through the center again, back down and underneath. And once those cables are fished through, we're ready to reconnect the cables that were plugged into the back here. So the blue, brown, white, and black, as well as this brown one over here. Once those 5 cables have been reconnected, we're ready to connect the new display cables back to the display unit here. And then we're just going to push these cables through the center and re-secure the display. Alright, so the display is in place. We're just going to replace those 2 screws. We're just going to leave these 2 fairly loose in case we have to shift it around when we put the vent cover back in place. Now we need to install the iPod cable into the back of the radio. So what we're going to do is remove this cable here first. Once this one's removed, we should have access to the iPod cable, which is right back here. So we'll remove that one next. Alright, now we can plug the cable provided into the back of the radio where the iPod one has been removed. And once that's done, we're going to take the other end and plug that into the iPod connector that was previously plugged into the back of the radio. Okay, so we have the new cable plugged into the back of the radio and the old connection into the other slot that was provided on the end of this cable here. And so we're going to just wrap this again with foam tape. Alright, once that's taped up, we can replug the top cable back into the radio. And now we're ready to run the CarPlay cables into the kick panel on the passenger side. So I'm going to remove this kick panel here, the side panel. It should be just clipped in. Alright, so we just pulled the side kick panel out here. Alright, so the next step is to run all of the CarPlay cables back around those OEM cables there, and then down into the floor panel below here. Okay, so we were able to route all the cables through, just routed right behind that bracket there, and then they came through underneath the bottom here. So it took me about 15 minutes to get them all through, so we'll just need some patience with that process. And once the CarPlay cables have been routed down, we have to do one more cable, and that's the USB cable. So we have the USB cable here and a speaker on the other end. So we're going to have the speaker just sit here. We're going to plug the speaker cable into this connection here and route this end here back through again, just like we did with the CarPlay connections. Once we have all the cables routed, just going to wrap the speaker up with some foam tape. Like that. Okay, so now we're ready to put the USB cable back underneath the radio. It's going to come back through the center console. That needs to run underneath. And we're ready to mount the radio back into place. So we're just going to lift that back into place. And screw it in. And once the radio is secured, we're just going to slide the speaker just underneath this little piece right here. Okay, so now we're ready to connect our CarPlay set-top box to the cables underneath the passenger kick side here. So we're going to put the mic cable in first and then the USB cable in. Next we'll do the iPod cable in this slot here and the UART cable in this slot here. Now we can connect the power cable to this one and the LVTS connection to this one. And now we can plug the data cable in and the last cable into here. Once they're all connected, we're just going to hide the set-top box underneath the kick panel in this open space here. Once the set-top box is in here, we can go and replace the passenger kick panel again. Alright, so the next thing we want to do is run the USB cable underneath this shifter panel here into the console center here, and we're going to replace this 12-volt cigarette adapter here with a USB mount converter kit. So first thing we need to do is just pop this center panel off here. So this shifter panel here is secured with 4 screws. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we're going to remove those 4 screws on this side and as well as the other side. Once those 8 screws have been removed, we can slowly lift the center panel up and over. And we can just rest it against the steering wheel so we don't have to disconnect any cables. Now we're going to disconnect the cigarette lighter here, and that's just this blue tab right there. So this piece just pinches down here, and then you can pull it straight out. Once it's disconnected, we're just going to push this through, and I'm just going to screw the cap all the way to the end so that it looks like this. Now we're ready to put the other end through the hole here. Unfortunately, it is just a hair too big, so I'm just going to use a drill and just take a little bit of extra space off the end of this hole here. So I'm just going to use this step bit here and just by hand go nice and slowly, just to make sure that I don't overdo it, until I'm able to slide it through. And pop it in without any major force. There we go. Alright, so now we're just going to slide the bolt through here. And we can fasten it on the other end. Once the USB mount has been secured, we can take the USB cord from the CarPlay unit and we will run that underneath this piece here underneath the shifter panel here, and we'll connect those 2 pieces. Okay, so the USB cable is connected, so I'm just going to use some electrical tape so that this doesn't come loose. Alright, so I'm also going to add some foam tape to this connection here. And then I'm just going to roll this wire up and hide it inside the shifter panel. Now we're ready to replace our shifter panel and secure it in place. Once it's in place, we'll just replace those 4 screws on this side and on the other side. Alright, so now we can put our passenger kick panel back into place. Just snap in, like so. Alright, so now we're ready to remove the screen protector for our display. So I just noticed my display wasn't in all the way, so I had to basically pull it out and just make sure that those pieces there go up and underneath that hole in the back there. Once it's back, you'll notice that there's a lot more space in the front here. So I'll secure that again. And now we're ready to replace the vent bezel top here. That should just snap into place. Once that's in place, I noticed that the screen was a little bit lower on this side, so I'm just going to loosen the screw and pop it up before I secure these 2 screws again. Alright, so now we can replace the vent bezel screw. Alright, now we're ready to put our main control panel back in place. We just got to remember to connect this connector here first before we snap it into place, and then we can snap it in. Once it's snapped into place, there's 2 screws that we need to replace underneath, one on this side and one on the other side. Alright, so now we can connect our audio panel, and before that we just got to make sure that we plug in the connector for the panel from this clip here. And once it's clipped into place, again we can replace the 2 screws, one on that side and one on that side. Now we should be able to replace the next panel underneath. Should just snap right in. Okay, so we're ready for this bottom panel now. We just got to remember to reconnect this wire clip here. So we're just going to connect that guy in and snap it into place. For last panel, I'm just going to put this back up and over and make sure that the holes are lined up again with this piece so that they stick through the USB plate there. And then I'm going to leave the bottom piece. I'm not going to snap that in. I'm just going to slide this in next. Once that's slid into place about there, I'm going to replace the side panels because we need access to these two screws here before we clip this last USB panel into place. So as you can see, the reason I didn't want to tighten this piece yet is that this slides this underneath the screw, and then we can tighten the screw. So first we're just going to snap it into place. And once it's snapped into place, all the way along the edge here, we can tighten the screw inside here. So as you can see, there's that plastic wedge piece there that slid underneath, and we were able to tighten that screw there. Now we can repeat the same process on the other side, and once that's in, tighten the screw again. And now we're ready to snap the USB tray into place, and then push down on the rubber tray so that it snaps into the. Now we can put our shifter knob back on, and then slide the pin back into place. Once the pin is back in place, we can slide the cover up and over and lock it into place. Now we're ready to reconnect the battery, so I'm just going to put the negative terminal back on. Now we can start the car, put it back into park, and release the parking brake. So we're just going to make sure some of the basic functions of the car work. I'm going to put it in reverse, make sure that the rear camera is working. It's good. Make sure that the radio still works. It's good. GPS is still working. Now I'm ready to test the CarPlay, so I'm just going to plug my USB in, and we'll plug the other end into the iPhone. Now I'm just going to press on audio, and we will click on iPod. Alright, so it looks like we have music. That's working good. Let's test Siri. Hey Siri, take me to the nearest gas station. Looks like everything's working. So that's how you install a UNAVI Carplay system on a Infiniti QX60. I hope this video helps somebody else.